When I first made my video on Outlast 1, I kinda knew I was gonna have to tackle Outlast 2 eventually, because they share the exact same difficulty and achievement wombo combo. For reference, in Outlast 1 you'd get the Lunatic and Bowel Whistler achievements for clearing the main game and DLC on its hardest difficulty, Insane Mode. In Outlast 2, you get the Saint achievement for doing the exact same thing. If you're unfamiliar with Insane Mode, it's permadeath. If you die in the game, you die in real life, or at least start from the beginning of the game. So that's what we'll be going for, meaning the Saint achievement, not unaliving in real life. Although this game made me feel that way sometimes. There's also a decently well-known achievement that goes hand in hand with Saint, called Messiah. You might have heard of it cause it's on some of those hardest achievement ever lists because you can only get it on Insane Mode by not reloading your camera batteries for the entire run. I'd argue it might belong on a most annoying achievement ever list instead because I could get the same sort of challenge on any game by jabbing my thumbs into my eyes, although that might be more of an enjoyable experience. Normally, this is the kind of extra challenge I'd be all over, but unfortunately, not being able to see doesn't really work well for a video. And you'll see, if you don't already know, that this is a pretty dark game, in a lot more ways than one. So I'm gonna pass on Messiah. Instead, we'll also be going for Prophet and As a Hell, 100% intentionally and not get them by accident, please believe me. You get Prophet for beating the game without hiding in barrels or closets, but lockers, beds, and confession booths are all still fair game. And As a Hell is just for beating the game under 4 hours. There's also a really good chance I'm not saying that achievement's name right. Tony pronounces words right challenge run when? The answer's probably never.
Hey, Lynn, I don't think you should say murder.
In Outlast 2, we're a cameraman named Blake Langerman, with his investigative journalist wife Lynn, who are helicoptering around the Arizona desert doing a story on a body that was found on the side of the road, yada yada yada, another day in the States. No YouTube cringe comps this time. Anyways, we get flashbanged out of the helicopter and then we're moving around looking for our now missing wife. Also, all of these cutscenes are unskippable, which is unfortunate because while these early ones are just annoying at worst to sit through, some of the later ones are pretty gross. Not even like fun gross, just nasty gross. Having to rewatch them every time I died was a special form of torture, so I won't do that to you. Best I can do is some soup pies.
Have a soup pie. Have a soup pie.
Gameplay-wise, there's a few changes between Outlast 2 and the original that I want to mention early on here. First up is that you no longer regenerate health over time. Now we need to find bandages and a safe place to plug our holes. No more running in circles forever until they clog themselves up. The next change, and probably the one with the biggest impact overall, is that there's no more infinite stamina in running. Whereas Miles Upshur and Wayland Park probably ran track and field when they were young, I think Blake was more like my dad and spent his childhood smoking a pack a day. Basically, you've got like 30 seconds before Blake slows down to Sebastian Castellanos-like speeds. And I know that 30 seconds may sound like a lot of time, but my ex told me it's not. It can also take a few of those seconds to reach your top speed in the first place, and any sort of incline or stairs kills your momentum. So that's great. Normally, I'm all for stamina management in games, but in the case of Outlast 2, it kinda sucks a lot. Mostly because the level design feels like a step backwards from the original. Outlast 1 had areas that felt like you always had a place you could run around to loop and lose the enemies. Outlast 2's areas kind of feel like straight shots with little room for maneuvering. So what does that have to do with stamina? Well, when your only defense is running, and you don't really have any viable options for losing enemies, it can be pretty annoying when it feels like your stamina runs out in like 5 seconds and then you die. This isn't really fixed by hiding either because enemies will just randomly check spots regardless if they know you're in the area or not. And since they do that, they're damn near guaranteed to check the only barrel on their patrol in the middle of a straight fucking line of an area. Not that we can hide anyways because the majority of hiding spots are barrels and those are no bueno for the Prophet achievement. The last change I want to talk about is just plain annoying, and it's that normal enemies have one-hit kill potential, like this guy. Oh wait, what? Pardon me? Of course, he's actually one of the first normal enemies in the entire game that can kill you, but that checks out with my luck. And as far as I can tell, it's entirely random if they'll one-hit you. Sometimes you get lucky and you only catch a bitch slap. Other times they'll grab you and straight up execute you at full health. You never know. Also, here's some hillbilly bullshit. What? The majority of the first bit of the game here is just tutorial stuff. Running, stopping, and catching some of that sweet, sweet Outlast lore that I don't think I'll ever fully understand. On that note, we find Lynn after jumping through a window, and then she's immediately abducted by one of the big bads, Val, who chases us like once at the very end of the game. If you've never played or seen Outlast 2, I'm going to give you a quick story TLDR so you can vaguely follow along with some of the shenanigans happening here. There's this whole conflict between two religious cults fighting over Lynn because she's supposedly pregnant with the Antichrist. One cult wants a child to be born, the heretics, and the other doesn't, the Christians. And Blake just wants to save his wife and bail out. This whole sequence is like 5 minutes long, and a great time to grab a coffee if you ever do this yourself. And once you get back from your coffee, you get to play for like 2 minutes before another story sequence that almost gives you enough time to take a shit. Besides the tutorial stuff, 15 of the opening 30 minutes of this game is just watching stuff happen. It's a little slow. And it can feel even slower if you're an idiot and die right after. Oh fuck! I forgot. I fucking forgot. Fucking LOL! If that's not slow enough, you also have the option of pressing jump by accident and throwing yourself off of a cliff as soon as the game starts. So the first actual area where we have to do something involves flipping a switch to get an elevator running. There's a couple of goons creeping around here, but mainly you don't want to walk up to this lady in the middle of the path. Wait, she attacks me? Have I not ran past her before? But for real, it's pretty much a straight walk to the generator house where there's like 2 guys that come after us. They're pretty easy to juke, and once you get up the stairs to the generator room, they bugger off. Stop that. Actually, everyone pretty much leaves because Marta comes around. And Marta's the main big bad pursuer. We see her a couple of times before this, but nothing that's really worth mentioning. Anyways, since this place is designed with a single path through it, we just wait to see where Marta's going, then run right past her. Right after we go up the elevator, we have a brief encounter with the Dalai Lama. Okay, but actually the flashbang tower gives people dementia or something, and we have to take Blake through some hallucinations. The majority of these, there's not a whole lot to say about them. They're just like small transition areas to get Blake somewhere new while they show us something spooky, namely going to Catholic school. Next up, we've got what I think is the best designed area in the game, like in terms of an area to be chased around. There's a nice big main road and a lot of alleys and paths that loop around in between houses. Theoretically, a lot of places to run people around and lose them. But none of that ultimately matters because Marta's the pursuer here, and she will literally teleport. Fuck's sake, shit dick! If you walk past certain fences, she'll just burst through them as if she was waiting there the whole time. It's just kind of lame. After that bit, there's another chance for a bathroom break, because we gotta listen to some people get tortured while we just chill in a confession booth. But basically, we find out that we need to head to a mine because that's where Lynn's being held. Unfortunately for Lynn, she's gonna have to wait a little while longer because I got iced after running through a cornfield. I'm dead.
The noise of the fury of the Lord comes upon me! Sir?
I couldn't close. Okay. And that's fucked up. Awesome. This is one of those spots where I had either zero resistance from the locals or something like this happen. Is there 2 of them? We're dead.
You are perfect. You are perfect. And the
How are we alive? What? The next area is the last time we see Marta for a good while. No shenanigans here. Grab a hook, open a door, and if you don't open it in time, it's GG. Go forward! Are you kidding me? Oh my goodness. I was frozen. I thought I was dead. Now we're in what I like to call the Valley of the Sith, because I'm fairly certain that everyone down here is littered with venereal disease. Ew. And a couple of dudes named Laird and Nick are the big pursuers in the valley. Laird rides Nick and is pretty much the Legolas of Arizonans with syphilis, which is actually how I died the first time I got here, meaning the Legolas part, not the other part. Yeah, I'm very dead. I was supposed to hide in the fucking tent, wasn't I? Oh, I'm so fucking dead, dude. Don't do it. Through the tree! All right, I'm dead. Great, great. I thought I was supposed to run. I'm so stupid. You're supposed to aggro these guys, hide in the tent, and then book it. But the next time I got here, I found out that you can actually spend too much time in the tent. They can't possibly know I'm in here. What the fuck? I'm dead. Fucking awesome. Just for reference, I think the valley is around the halfway mark of the game. There's like 3 main parts, the town, the valley, and the mines, so somewhere down here would be around there. Now we're at the first of like 3 cutscenes I can't, and more importantly, don't want to show. Because like I said earlier, it gets gross. Also, YouTube wouldn't like it. The long short of this one is right after we get away from Nick and Laird, we get caught by Nick and Laird anyways. Then Nick cuts open his nasty little hand and squirts blood into Blake's mouth.
Open his mouth, Nick.
But don't worry, the mood gets lifted immediately after when Blake gets lifted and crucified, then pulls his hands off the nails. Blake is pretty much good as new after we bandage up his hands and try to forget that whatever Nick had is certainly going to manifest in Blake if he ever escapes this place. This is also the "oh no, our camera's gone, but luckily everything's well lit" part of the game. To be fair, there's a few guys to avoid here, unlike the same part in the first game, but it's still pretty easy to get the camera back. And when we do, we're in a forest dodging arrows from Nick and Laird. Avoiding the goons in the forest is actually surprisingly easy. There's a few houses to hide in if we need to, but keeping to the perimeter works wonders as well. The real challenge here, or at least for me, is this part where Nick takes shots at us across a ravine. We have to bait him into shooting and then move bit by bit behind cover, but I tend to suck at these kinds of things. What? What? After making it back, the next time went a lot better. All right, next arrow. What the fuck do we do now, chat? We're stuck. Although there is this really cheeky enemy placement when you drop down, like right after. Very cool. Anyways, I know getting nailed earlier was probably worse, but sliding into barbed wire feels a little more awful to me. The next area is pretty much just a straight line. We gotta run to grab a rope, then head right back the way we came, but with Nick taking more pot shots at us. To be fair, there's at least a couple of cabins in here for cover, but also a couple of guys patrol right by them. And even though this section ends with Nick and Laird dying, Blake's carrying a little piece of Nick with him forever. The next 15 or so minutes is a raft ride through some rapids, and not a lot else happens, unless we want to count mashing left click to dislodge yourselves from getting stuck. It ends with us getting tongue scared right before we hit the outside of the mines. Speaking of the tongue, I know I only mentioned the Catholic school stuff super briefly, but you're not really missing out on me not showing a lot there. In terms of story, the tongue dude is a diddly priest that killed Blake's friend Jessica back when he was a kid, which obviously is super grim. But surprisingly, almost all the areas where he can kill us are super easy. Whenever he shows up, we just turn around and run the other way until he disappears. This whole next area is the best looking part of the game, but we only get to see it a little bit because it constantly jumps between the real world and hallucinations for this entire bit. It's pretty much a prolonged chase sequence. Nothing to grab here, just running. Good thing there's that really cool stamina system in place so Blake doesn't get tired immediately with a bunch of guys following him and nowhere to rest. Bro, Blake is out of breath. I can't run. I literally...
No!
When I finally made it back to the part where I died, keyword being finally, because there are so many deaths I had to cut, I'm way more familiar with this game than I ever wanted to be, and I think I have Lynn's opening monologue memorized, I had pretty similar slowdown problems. But I guess no one caught up with me this time, and I don't know what to tell you besides that this game is incredibly inconsistent. Okay. Anyways, one of the hallucinations that happens right after is where I used up my first camera battery, just in case anyone was wondering what part for me kills Messiah. It's an actual pitch black library maze with a priest waddling around with his tongue hanging out. After that though, we get what I consider to be the scariest part of the game because we gotta crawl around on the bathroom floor in a school. And if it's anything like the bathrooms in the schools I went to, they are absolutely vile and sticky. A lot of running later, and we get our obligatory broken video game elevator. It sends us down into the mines, which also is a part that's almost entirely pitch black. But first up, we gotta deal with some really tight caves and a couple goons patrolling them. This is the one part in the game where I found hiding actually pretty useful, and it was in a locker, so lucky me. Pretty much, I crossed my fingers and ran as soon as one of the two guys down here walked past me, and then just hoped to hell that the other dude wasn't gonna be in my path, which actually worked. No, he didn't check the locker. If he walks off to the right, that's our moment. I feel sick. I feel so fucking sick to my stomach right now. A couple more chases left, chat. And after we made it past them, we got to see some skeletos. Ooh. And now we're in the final stretch of the game. Val's here, and our final pursuer for a grand total of like 2 pretty short chases, and then a last kind of small area where we flip a couple of switches. The switch area is probably the second darkest bit in the game, but in kind of a hilarious twist, both the switches sort of flash in the dark like a classic Resident Evil item. Besides that, Val's moving around with a light, so they're pretty easy to spot and avoid. Once the switches are both flipped, we're out of here. And that's pretty much it for the run. All we have left is some walking and some cutscenes, including a whole bunch of stuff that I can't really show, but I can kind of describe. So what happens is that Blake gets drugged and walks through an orgy, which isn't the worst thing that's about to happen, but I'm still keeping it blurred. What is bad is that Blake gets feared 2 spoilers from Val, and then that transitions to Blake wrestling in the school cafeteria with Jessica, which is, uncomfortable, to say the least.
I'm beating you.
After we snap back to reality, all the heretics are being killed, and we find Lynn hanging around very, very pregnant. Even though she isn't really, and it's from the flashbang tower. Oh, Outlast lore, how does this happen? Blake's out here trying to make sure that no baby happens though. Look at this.
Down here! We have to get inside before the baby comes.
It's too dangerous. You can't.
We can't stay out here. Help me down, please, Blake.
Okay. Jesus. Be careful.
God, every time! Sorry, babe. Forgot you were pregnant. Shouldn't have dropped you, my bad. And this is the final chase of the game. Marta's back for one last ring around the rosy, which I almost screwed up. I can't even begin to explain how cathartic it is seeing her get skewered.
Voice. God guide my hand. God give me voice. God guide my hand. God give me voice. God guide my hand. God give me voice. God guide my hand.
Guys, we're done. We're fucking done. The catharsis is immediately ruined by a full-blown miracle of life birthing scene that I didn't even bother to record because, let's be honest, most gamers won't ever get to this point in real life, so I didn't think it was necessary.
Oh, God! Oh, God!
Keep breathing.
It's
Just
killing
push.
me! Ah!
This game was not gentle. Please pop. Ah! We're good. Oh my God. Never again. Fuck this game. Outlast 2 sucks. I hate it. And that's Outlast 2's Saint achievement for finishing the game on Insane Mode. Profit and As a Hell pop after the credits, which is important to note because I obviously didn't get those by accident, and I'm absolutely not trying to pass it off like I meant to get them all along. You also might have picked up on some vibes that I don't really like Outlast 2, and you'd be absolutely right. I just can't even begin to get into it without making like an hour-long video that ends with me crying. The folks who saw this live know exactly what I'm talking about, and if you ever want to watch me live, you can catch me over at twitch.tv/anxiety. Thanks for watching. Profit and Shell. I don't even know what those ones are.